The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
This is News Talk.
Hello there, welcome along to Monday. Oh, it's not Monday, bank holiday. Tuesday, excuse me. Tuesday evening's Off the Ball. Kieran Cunningham is with us in all things Olympics, including a medal guaranteed for Kelly Harrington. We have Kelly's brother Chris on the show as well. Very proud day, as you can imagine, in the Harrington household. Niamh Briggs on a deciding test this Saturday. Lions making 6 changes for that game. We'll chat to Niamh after 9 o'clock. And then Leinster and Ulster football finals won by Dublin and Tyrone. We have 2 very good semi-finals now in store. The Dubs against Mayo, Kerry against Tyrone. We'll chat to Johnny Doyle and Billy Joe Padden after 8. Plus Harry Kane is AWOL. 2 days running, hasn't shown up for training at Spurs. He's gone all out. Harry Kane, he's saying not happening. Miguel Delaney with us after 8:30. Amazing developments there in that story. So looking forward to chatting to Miguel after 8:30. 53106 the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack, hello to you.
Happy Monday, Joe.
Oh, indeed. Nathan Murphy, I didn't think Harry Kane would have it in him. I didn't think he'd burn these bridges, but he has gone all out 2 days running, not showing up. This is war.
The speculation had been mounting for the last week or so that this might happen. And you're right, part of you thinks Harry Kane, he's just not that kind of guy, which maybe shows our own bias towards a figure like Harry Kane. From his point of view, what's the worst that can happen? So he doesn't turn up for training a couple of days. Best case scenario, he forces Daniel Levy to think this guy means business and I'm going to accept the 125 million from Manchester City. Worst case scenario, he has to stay and honour his contract, which is where the problems here all lie. Signing that 6-year deal was insanity for a player of the brilliance of Harry Kane to tie himself down to a club like Tottenham for the rest of your career when there's no need. Are Tottenham going to pay him any less back in 2018 for signing a 4-year contract? I can't see it. So, listen, it's the fact that Spurs play Manchester City in less than 2 weeks on the opening weekend of the season probably adds a little bit of a complication to this as well, because the last thing Daniel Levy is going to want is Harry Kane making his Manchester City debut at Spurs on the opening weekend of the season, which means in all likelihood this is going to go right to the very end. He'll miss the first 3 or 4 matches, but he is arguably, if Haaland and Mbappe aren't going, the best striker in the world that Manchester City could possibly buy. So it's worth him doing this. I'm sure he'll be on double the wages. He will have ridiculous success. He will win many trophies. He may win a Champions League. He'll win Premier League titles. And if it doesn't happen, he goes back to Spurs, and they're in such a perilous predicament that all the fans will love him in 3 months' time anyway. So why not, eh?
Well, that's true. The fickle fans will turn around and welcome him back, I suppose, if he stays pretty quickly. That is not the main story, though. Miguel Delaney on the way around 8:30. 7:30. First story, we'll be chatting to Kieran Cunningham and to Chris Harrington, brother of Kelly, who Richie McCormack, and we should start the news round, is brought to you by with thanks to Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Kelly Harrington, who is now minimum bronze medalist and hopefully much more, Richie.
Yeah, Kelly Harrington secured Ireland's 4th medal of the Tokyo Olympics early this morning. The lightweight from Portland Road beat Algeria's Iman Khalif by unanimous decision in their quarter-final, and Harrington guarantees herself at least a bronze. She'll face Sudaponsi Sondi in Thursday's semi-finals. Harrington beat the Thai to win gold at the 2018 World Championships in New Delhi. Staying in the ring, and Aidan Walsh says he'd be sharing his bronze medal with sister Michaela. The Belfast fighter was on crutches for today's medal ceremony, having damaged his ankle in celebrating his quarter-final win.
It was quite striking, Nathan, listening to Kelly Harrington this morning, how emotional she was. I think we can all make the mistake here of, well, assuming she was going to at least get a medal, if not even better than a bronze, and so taking it almost as like a fait accompli. And then you realise the reality of all the pressure, all the waiting, all the build-up, and the knowledge that so many little things can go wrong even when you're expected to medal. And so she was just very emotional. You know, this was just a huge thing for, I think, relief as much as anything as well. I'm not leaving empty-handed, thank God.
We're all guilty when we have a favourite like Kelly Harrington of just assuming it's going to happen, and we saw it with the rowers last week that it did. But like, this Olympic Games has been littered with performances for Irish athletes as much as anybody else where they haven't felt right a couple of days beforehand. There's been a niggly injuries we saw with Ciara McGeehan right at the last possible moment. It's what makes the Olympic Games and why certain sports just don't mean as much, because if Kelly Harrington isn't right today, everything we've thought about her for the last 4 or 5 years, we're rethinking as a sports person. And like the extra year, the fact she's moving on, she's 31 now. Like since she won the World Championship in 2018, we've all thought Kelly Harrington is going to go to the Olympics and she is going to medal. And she's probably going to come back with a gold medal, we think. And to have that on her shoulders and to just have to wait and wait and wait and fear that something might go wrong, and then for it not to go wrong and for actually to have a pretty flawless performance, to be comfortably winning an Olympic medal. Yeah, it's such a real success story and a positive story, and the pride that she has of place, of her community in inner city Dublin, of where she works, of what she's done over the last year. When you think that in the middle of the pandemic, she went back to work in hospital, working as a cleaner, working as a porter, and, not thinking of herself, actually, I'm an Olympian, I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to step away from this. No, I'm just going to get on and live my life and do my job. Like, she's everything that is good about Irish sport, and shows why we need to look at these sports, like boxing in particular, and invest when you get characters like Kelly Harrington.
Yeah, so Thursday, 6 a.m. is when she fights C. Sundee. So 6 a.m. Irish time on Thursday. As Richie says, she did beat that Thai fighter in the 2018 World Championships in New Delhi. It was a very close fight. It was far from like a sure thing. Now, the assumption is, or the received wisdom is from those who know Kelly Harrington, is that she has certainly improved as a fighter since 2018. As for C. Sundee, I'd be lying if I said I knew, but it certainly was a very close fight back in 2018. So Thursday morning, 6 a.m, and fingers crossed she keeps it going. And Aidan Walsh, as you said, Richie, there in crutches. I mean, how do you make sense of his games and the way his games came to an abrupt halt? I mean, I'm sure he's delighted, but very strange, thoughts on the flight home.
Yeah, you look particularly at the final for that fight, or for that weight class, took place this morning as well. And you're looking at the competitors, and that Pat McCormack was obviously one who he was supposed to fight in the semi-finals, and the Cuban was another. And they were both very, very good fighters. I think Aidan would have been lucky to have improved on his bronze, but it was definitely within his wheelhouse to do it. But as you say, to celebrate his quarterfinal victory with that Michael Cruz-esque hop up and down inside the ring, and for that to ultimately cost him the chance to improve on that medal, was heartbreaking. But on Nathan's point about looking after these sports and making sure that they keep generating these medals, we have to be careful about how we do that as well, because just last night the story came out that St. Teresa's down in Bray was having to find a new home because its club, essentially its clubhouse, was out of their reach from now on. And this has been a recurring theme throughout the pandemic, particularly in boxing, that these clubs have been unable to keep hold, several of them anyway, have been unable to keep hold of their premises. So sports like this really need an arm around them, especially as it proves that they can play such a large part in improving the mood of the nation, as Harrington and more have done across the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk to Kieran Cunningham 7:30. Meanwhile, worth mentioning, by the way, Billy Walsh is doing fine things, as we would have expected with Team USA. Obviously emotional for him to oversee the defeat of Kurt Walker over the weekend. He brought Walker into the high performance unit. That means Team USA now guaranteed 4 medals, which is their best haul since Sydney. Very long time. So, I mean, that's one of the real brilliant stories. Irishman transforming, unfortunately, Team USA, but doing a phenomenal job. Billy Walsh, now gone out of the Irish system 6 years and counting. You always feel like, God, he's got to come back soon, but times
sure, he's not alone. Like, you look at what John Coughlin, the high performance trainer, has done to bring a gold medal to Camacho Quinn in the 100-meter hurdles there just the other day on the track. Like, we've coaches who, unfortunately, for different reasons, have been posted to different points around the world, and you would just love that their brains would continually be able to be tapped in this country for the benefit of our athletes. But not only do we have brilliant boxers and brilliant athletes in general across in Tokyo, but there are several coaches doing the business for other countries as well.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the Walsh one, though, because it was so acrimonious and it felt avoidable, I think is a bit of salt in that wound. So that's Billy Walsh, that's the boxing. What else you got going on?
A potential sleeper medal in the eventing, because all 3 Irish riders have qualified for tomorrow's individual show jumping final in Tokyo. Dara Kenny finished second in qualification. He was first out of 73 riders today, and for a long time he had the best time, finished up in second in the qualifying round. He'll be joined by Bertram Allen, who placed 6th today, and the 2012 bronze medalist Cian O'Connor. They will return for that final at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Elsewhere, Andrew Coscoran secured a place in the men's 1500 metre semi-finals. He finished as one of the fastest runners-up in the heats today, while Leon Reid was 7th in his semi-final of the men's 200 metres. But undoubtedly the performance of the day, and perhaps even the games, belonged to Karsten Warholm. The Norwegian smashed his own 400-metre hurdles record to win gold this morning in a time of 45.94 seconds. Silver medalist Ray Benjamin, to give you a measure of how fast the race was, ran the second fastest time ever, beating Warholm's record set only earlier this month as well. Elaine Thompson-Herah became the first woman to successfully defend the 100 and 200-metre Olympic titles. The Jamaican claimed 200-metre gold this afternoon in a time of 21.53 seconds. And Simone Biles returned to action and took bronze in the balance beam gymnastics. The four-time Rio gold medalist had sat out all of her individual events, having pulled out of the all-around team event last week. Gold today went to Guang Chen of China, just 16, with silver to Tang Jijing. And despite not having the Olympics she intended, Biles was pleased to have raised the issue of mental health in elite sport.
Well, to bring the topic of mental health, I think it should be talked about a lot more, especially with athletes, because I know some of us are going through the same things and we're always told to push through it, but we're all a little bit older now and we could kind of speak for ourselves. But at the end of the day, we're not just entertainment, we're humans, and there are things going on behind the scenes that we're also trying to juggle with as well on top of sports. So yeah. Well, I honestly wasn't even expecting to medal on beam. I just was trying to go out there and hit a good beam set and compete one more time at this Olympic Games, because I qualified for all five finals, but then I pulled out, so it sucked. But I was excited to be in the stands and cheering for all of Team USA.
In fairness to her, under the circumstances, it's a remarkable bronze medal and one she should be very proud of. On Karsten Warholm there, who Richie mentioned, Nathan, this is extraordinary. I mean, absolutely the performance of the games. And Carl Dennehy was on OTB AM with Shane and Owen. He was saying there's a chance it's the greatest athletic performance on the track of all time. He's including Usain Bolt in that. That's what he's saying about this performance. So Karsten Warholm, he knocked 0.76 off his own world record. So he beat himself by about 7 metres, if you're looking for a visual of how much he trounced the June version of Karsten Warholm. And when he broke that record in June, that record had stood for 29 years. Kevin Young had held the record before that. And so he beats 46 seconds. I mean, he was talking in advance of the game saying maybe 46.3, maybe 46.4 he could do. So he ran 45.94. That's a new world record. Basically, 1, 2 and 3 here are now 1, 2 and 3 in the fastest times of all time. So Alison Dos Santos, who finished third, has the third fastest time of all time. And then Rai Benjamin, it was very much Rai Benjamin versus Warholm here. There's talk of like the track is very fast. It's a fast track that's contributed to it, and also the super spikes are a factor. Like Warholm through Puma has been working with Mercedes on his technology, and Rai Benjamin has those Nike AirPods, which are very conducive to fast times. I suppose like the reality is, Nathan, you kind of in our job in particular, because you're so sick of talking about doping, you watch all of these performances with your arms crossed and your eyebrow raised. Carl Dennehy was making the point on OTB AM that when it comes to Karsten Warholm, there's no whiff. There are no red flags. He's not working with coaches that would worry you. You know, Thomas Barr's in this event, and you can hear whispers about different people very easily. He was saying there are no whispers at the moment about Karsten Warholm, and I'm sure his sample will be tested for the next decade and beyond, because unfortunately that's the reality for athletics and for track and field. But I mean, if you can believe in this guy, then what he has done here is absolutely phenomenal, off the charts.
I think the fact that so many of them went so fast almost took away from the majesty of the moment at the time, because when you think of greatness at that sort of distance, like say Michael Johnson in the 200 meters in 96 or the 400 meters, where he's absolutely blitzed the field and you know how far away from everybody else he is. I was waiting for Steve Cram's voice. That's what I judge the brilliance on. His shock and almost horror that he had managed to run quite so fast. And I think the guy who came fourth was the 8th fastest time of all time, right, which must be a bit of a sickener. But you're right, much like watching the women's 100 meters final, when people call it astonishing and Flojo's name comes up, and on that sort of level you do sort of cross your fingers and wait, and in 6 months' time what is going to emerge. But right now as a feat, yes, everybody in the know in athletics seems to think that this has been coming, as you said, a range of factors that are there, from the shoes to the track that it was a sort of perfect storm when you have this incredible athlete in the middle of it as well, that this sort of time was possible. But for them all to go quite that fast, and even having somebody like Thomas Barr, who would have felt, he could have been, should have been in that final, to sort of be blown away saying, wow, this is the greatest thing I have ever seen on a track. Maybe we should appreciate it.
Yeah, Barr was saying he just would love to have been part of this final just because it's history. So it does seem, again, athletics is not my forte, but listening to Carl Dennehy this morning, and it's well worth watching back, he was buzzing. As an athletics fan, they had just seen, I don't know, Barcelona, peak Barcelona, just tear Manchester United apart in a European Cup final, or Tiger Woods in 2000 do his thing. This was, something that will be talked about for a very long time. Hopefully, continually for the right reasons. And like I said, Carl Dennehy said there is no whiff at the moment around Karsten Orholm. So that seemed like an extraordinary moment on the track this morning. Coaches, says one texter, will in future be advising their charges not to do an Aidan Walsh. I know there is a bit of that. I think Solskjaer did his knees some damage with the celebration in Barcelona, by the way, when he slid on his knees. I think I remember reading that you're not at a great angle for the knees, and then you get 20 bodies on top of you, and I think the ligaments took a bit of a cranking.
Was it Thomas Levy who won, was it the French Open at Le Golf National about 10 years ago and dived into the lake at the side of the green, but whatever way he landed, he basically broke his leg.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing will ever beat Steve Morrow, though. The Steve Morrow 93 Coca-Cola Cup final, where he's hoisted up on the shoulders of Tony Adams. Tony loses balance, and poor Stevie spends the latter part of the season with his arm in a sling while celebrating the Coca-Cola Cup final. He was at the FA Cup final about a month later against the same opposition in absolute ribbons. So yeah, I don't think anybody could match poor Stevie.
Yeah. So look, I gotta say, I'm amazed here. I'm amazed that we didn't lead with this, but here we are, halfway down. Changed? So the Rowers won gold the other week, by the way, and the Newsround kicked off with Bows, who hadn't even kicked off their game yet, by the way. It was Bows play later this evening. So
I'd like to point out that Dundalk led last week, and rightly so, because they ended up beating Levadia Dallin. Oh my God! So it was well worth.
Maybe it's not a Bows thing, Richie. Is it a north side thing?
Would you stop?
So Kelly Harrington, fine. Rowers, Cork, not for me.
Kelly Harrington's brother is a Bows supporter, by the way.
Dundalk last week was just a vehicle to work in Bows at the top, and you just had there was no option tonight but to put Bows after the Olympic medal for Kelly Harrington. So they're in action this evening. They're obviously having a great time at the moment.
Yeah, some of us recognise the importance of Irish teams in Europe, Joseph. Bohemians facing their toughest test to date, though, in the Conference League tonight. They welcome Greek giants PAOK to the Aviva Stadium for the first leg of their third round qualifier. Bows are unchanged from the side that beat Dudlange at 3-0 at Lansdowne last week, while PAOK include former Borussia Dortmund and Manchester United midfielder Shinji Kagawa and Portugal international striker Nelson Oliveira. To give you some measure of their calibre, they've reached at least the group stage of the Europa League in 6 of the last 8 seasons. Kickoff is at 7:45. At the same time, Linfield entertained Fola Esch of Luxembourg. Rangers are in Champions League qualifier action at the moment. They kicked off at 6 o'clock away to Malmo. 2 early goals in the second half see Malmo leading by 2-0. And just another point of note from those early kickoffs in the Champions League as well. Monaco 1-0 up away to Sparta Prague. But the Monaco players have made an official complaint to, the officials over there after their striker Choumani was racially abused, it seems, after scoring Monaco's opener.
Okay. So Warren Gatland has rung the changes.
6 of them in all to his starting 15 for Saturday's deciding test with the Springboks. There is a first test cap for Connacht's Bundyaki, who partners his former provincial teammate Robbie Henshaw in the centre. Chris Harris drops out of the matchday squad entirely. Elsewhere in the backs, Liam Williams and Josh Adams come in for Stuart Hogg and Anthony Watson, while Conor Murray drops to the replacements. Ali Price, again preferred at scrum half. The 2 other changes are in the front row, with Ken Owens and Wyn Jones replacing Luke Cowan-Dickey and Mako Vunipola, while Kyle Sinclair has been cleared of biting to take his place on the bench. For the Boks, they've suffered a twin injury blow ahead of that third test, with scrum half Faf de Klerk and flanker Peter Steph Dutois missing out with their respective shoulder and muscle injuries. Lou Dieger comes into the second row, Franco Mostert moves to the blind side, and Cobus Reinach replaces de Klerk at number 9.
Yeah, to lose de Klerk and Dutois is massive, and maybe kind of gives the line some sense of momentum back, because at the moment after that second half it feels like South Africa absolutely in pole position. After the first half, Nathan, my general sense was that may have been the worst 63 minutes of sport I'd watched in a long time. That was an abomination of a first half. It really was dreadful.
God, it feels like a long time ago as well. So much has happened since it did drag on. I didn't mind it in a way. I like the edge, and it felt as though it might boil over at some stage, which I don't mind in these things. But for 63 minutes is just insanity. And like Nigel Owens touched on it, that because there's so much at stake and so much pressure has been put on the officials, everything is going to the TMO. Every possible angle is being checked and double checked, and there's about 4 co-commentators, each of whom disagree with each other, that they're just dragging the life out of it. And at the end of the day, it's not a World Cup final, it's a Lions test. Like, it's not quite as life and death a situation as something like a World Cup final. Just get on with it. But because of what happened last week, you can understand it. But it's a very easy weekend away for Rassie Erasmus, taken away from the injuries of just go and do that again, lads. Whereas Warren Gatland has now had a game like that where he sort of needs to rip up the game plan completely. I know he's made changes, but a penny for Owen Farrell's thoughts after this tour. Doesn't even make the match day 23 for this one. Like Ty Byrne, who everyone felt maybe had a chance of starting again, doesn't make the 23. It'll be a very interesting week in that Lions camp, I would imagine. And they need something dramatically different. They need to somehow physically be ready for them, but also start to create, because God, they never looked like doing anything on Saturday.
Yeah, and I don't know, you're confused by their thinking. Like Finn Russell on the bench now, suddenly on a whim, just doesn't add up with the way they've tried to play the first 2 tests, like ultra conservative themselves. And you suspect Gatland just said, well, look, it kind of worked in the first test and the South Africans ran out of steam. Let's just try and get over the line again, second test, and we'll be home and hose before the South Africans hit their straps. And lo and behold, South Africa really grew into that game and played brilliantly second half. So they're going to have to come out and play rugby. I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 points down with 10 minutes to go. Finn, on you go. Do some magic. Just enjoy yourself out there, Finn. I don't know. I guess that's the thinking, is that we may need to gamble or we may need to go for broke. But there hasn't been one starter play or one bit of rugby out of the Lions in 2 test matches now. They just played this very limited South Africa light kind of a game for a lot of it.
South Africa light is the word, because everything about them seems to be that little bit lighter, and they're being bullied. And I just couldn't believe. Listen, if you want to play Finn Russell and you want to start him and you want to do something magical and take a huge risk, go for it. But as you say, if you're 10 points down with 10 minutes to go, and how desperate does it look if you're throwing on Finn Russell?
Yeah, it'll look desperate. Yeah.
Dan Biggar will be starting his 3rd test. There's also a possibility actually you're 7 points up and Dan Biggar is shattered with 10 minutes to go. Is that where you want to be bringing
Finn
Russell on?
Yeah, close out the game for us, Finn. You're just yeah, I don't know. It's been such a strange series. It really has. I'm really fascinated to see, as bad as that first half was the other day, how this plays out now. Rich, very interesting move for James McCarthy.
Yeah, he has signed a 4-year contract at Celtic, Joe. The 30-year-old was a free agent after his Crystal Palace contract expired. He's not alone in joining Celtic today. Also linking up with the hoops is former England and Manchester City goalkeeper Joe Hart.
Yeah, I saw Dan McDonald tweeted, Nathan, James McCarthy's from a Celtic mad family, and with his father passing away last year, there's obviously a seriously emotional angle to moving home. I have a feeling this could work out quite well for him, if, I'm emphasising the if his body allows it.
He's played a good bit of football over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, after Euro 2016, he had 3-4 nightmare years where we never saw him in an Ireland jersey. We never got that midfield of himself, Hendrick and Brady. But he's been in and around the Crystal Palace squad pretty solidly over the last 2 seasons. So you would hope, fitness-wise. But Shane Duffy went to Celtic in, unfortunately, a very similar situation.
Why would you say that? Why would you even say that out loud?
And where Celtic are right now, with the pressure that's on you, Celtic once upon a time was the dream for Irish players, because you go in and you're probably going to win a lot. Right now, there's an enormous pressure. James McCarthy can't just go there and be a bit part player. And also, what is James McCarthy as a player right now? When I've seen him for Palace over the last couple of years, nothing has really changed. You're still watching him asking questions. It's just not his personality. It's just not his character. He's not an imposing figure in a game of football. He's a lovely, nice, neat footballer, but to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, that's not him. Maybe Celtic will have somebody who can do that in the middle of midfield, and he can, play 20 games, 25 games and contribute. But, going there for the dream of playing for Celtic just doesn't seem to be a really coherent footballing thing to do anymore.
Rich, we might just finish up with Kane and Fabinho. So Kane, you have it here. He is actually expected to return this weekend. It's not like Kane has said, I'm never going back there again, no matter what.
Yeah, the word coming from, I think it was Charlie Eccleshare tweeted earlier on today saying Kane believes this whole incident has been blown out of all proportion. The England captain failed to turn up for work again today in a bid to force a move away from Spurs. The England captain due back at pre-season training yesterday, but didn't show up then either. He's now expected to return at the weekend. He's been linked with a plethora of clubs, including both Manchester sides and Chelsea.
That's an that's an odd tactic, isn't it? Like, I'm not showing up now, but I'll show up at the weekend, so don't worry. Like, I thought he was just like, I'm not showing up again.
Yeah, I think this has clearly been put forward to him that you're going to have to show up at some stage, because otherwise this isn't going to work out well at all. It's that kind of thing that puts people off supporting the English game and sport to that echelon, because in no other walk of life
you wouldn't see the pose. I tell you that now.
Well, like you wouldn't see it in boxing. You wouldn't see it in no walk of life. Does somebody go? You wouldn't see it with you. If like there's suddenly the hard shoulder wants to steal you forever. You might. And then Joe goes, I'm not going to show up. And there's frenzied phone calls to get somebody in to replace it. It's ugly, and it's really unedifying. And without wanting to play the whataboutery card, you can imagine if some other players tried to pull the same stroke, the uproar that they would be as compared to Kane.
Yeah, that's true.
I get all that. To be honest, I don't have a great issue with this, because like loyalty in football. Like what you're saying about what other industry? What other industry would they take you in at 16 or 17 and promise you the world, and at 19 go, sorry, we don't want you, and dump you out? Like loyalty from football clubs towards players, it's there when it suits them. If you don't make the grade, tough luck.
Yeah.
Like the only issue here is Harry Kane has signed a contract. He feels he has a gentleman's agreement. We're all a bit surprised that he's gone this way, but I think he knows he's in such a powerful position right now. Like Spurs are always going to welcome him back. They are always going to welcome him back with open arms.
I guess the difference with most industries as well is I could leave. Do you know what I mean? I hopefully it wouldn't come to me saying I'm not turning up. I just say, here's my notice. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And then Fabinho, long-term contract?
Yeah, up until 2026 for the 27-year-old who joined from Monaco 3 summers ago. Just last week, of course, Trent Alexander-Arnold also signed improved terms at the Merseyside club. There may indeed be more players to come with contract talks still in the pipeline for the likes of Mo Salah.
Okay, very good. Richie McCormack, I'll talk to you tomorrow, being Wednesday. Thank you. And Nathan Murphy, as always, cheers.
Cheers, Joe.
We're talking to Kieran Cunningham. Next, we'll also hear from Kelly Harrington's brother, Chris.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
The new Dunn Stores app puts better value at your fingertips. Get the Coca-Cola range, 20 to 24 packs for just €10 each. Mix and match any 5 for €5 across 7up, Club, Pepsi